Please see whether it is changing or not. Slides are changing?
No, ma'am.
Not changing?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then I'll do one thing. Now please check whether it is changing.
Yes, ma'am. Changing.
Okay, then we will start. So, good evening to all. As in the last class, we have discussed something about optics. We have gone through different properties of electromagnetic wave because we know light is a transverse electromagnetic wave. So, the fundamentals of electromagnetic wave we have discussed in the last class, in which we have seen what are the fundamental laws associated with electromagnetic wave, and we could know that the Maxwell's electromagnetic equations in the differential form and integral forms are to be taken as the most fundamental equations to derive the electromagnetic wave equations in terms of the electric component and magnetic component. Then we are discussing about the isotropic medium. Then we are discussing about the Poynting vector, and we could know that Poynting vector is the vector representing the propagation of electromagnetic wave. In addition, in the last class, we have discussed the about the about different regions of electromagnetic spectrum, and those regions are classified in ascending or descending order of the frequency and wavelength, because we know the frequency and wavelength are related to each other reciprocally, because we know that E equal to h nu, that is the energy. E is equal to again h into c by lambda. So nu is equal to c by lambda, where c is the velocity of electromagnetic wave and h is the Planck's constant. Then nu is the frequency of a wave, lambda is the wavelength of a wave. As such, we have again discussed in the last class, we have discussed about the wave as a whole, the classification of wave, and we are then discussing about electromagnetic wave, all details of electromagnetic wave, the derivations, everything. So we know that whenever we are representing a wave, then wave is characterized by certain parameters. What are the characteristics of a wave? They are represented by the sinusoidal functions like sine function, cosine function, exponential function. Next, a wave is represented by a wave function psi, which is further a function of space and time coordinate. Next, a wave is represented by a displacement parameter, let us say x or y, whatever may be. Let us say x. X is equal to a sine kx minus omega t, where a is representing the amplitude. Amplitude is the maximum displacement on either side of the mean position. Then kx minus omega t or theta or phi, these values are to be taken with the trigonometric function, sine function or cosine function, which represent the phase of a wave. Phase is a physical quantity of a wave which represents further the direction and position of a particle at any instant of a time in a wave motion. So these are the things we have discussed in the last class. Now come to today's class content. We will discuss today about the electromagnetic wave propagation in anisotropic medium. Then we will discuss about three different aspects of wave, that is polarization, interference, then diffraction. These are all the wave properties, wave phenomena, and this explains the physical property of the waves. So, we will be discussing today about polarization, the one-sidedness or asymmetry property of electromagnetic wave, then interference, diffraction, then laser, optical fiber, optical waveguide. And you know that the waves are further classified into longitudinal wave, transverse wave. Both the longitudinal and transverse waves exhibit interference and diffraction. But the only property which explains the longitudinal wave and transverse wave is the polarization phenomenon. So, polarization is the only phenomenon which is exhibited by the transverse electromagnetic wave, which distinguishes between longitudinal wave and transverse wave. I repeat that polarization, interference, diffraction. These are the three wave phenomena, and out of these three wave phenomena or physical properties, interference, diffraction are exhibited both by the transverse wave and longitudinal wave. But polarization is the phenomena which is exhibited only by the transverse wave but not by the longitudinal wave. Hence, polarization is the single phenomena which distinguishes whether a wave is a transverse wave or a longitudinal wave. Are you getting anything?
Yes, ma'am.
ବୁଝି ହେଉଛି କେଉଁଠି ଯଦି ବୁଝା ପଡ଼ୁନି you can stop me and you can discuss with me, no problem. Next, that will be then followed by, after diffraction we will be discussing about lasers, optical fibers and optical waveguides, because these are then required for device fabrication, device application. So these are the content I have taken from your syllabus. These are the things we need to focus on. And since from the last class we have been discussing about the electromagnetic wave, and as I said that light is an electromagnetic wave in which electric component is perpendicular to the magnetic component. Both of them are perpendicular to the direction of propagation of wave, and we know that whenever it is a transverse wave, then these are the crest points, these are the trough points. The distance between any two consecutive crest or consecutive trough is known as wavelength, right? So, in association with wavelength, there are some other characteristic or some other properties by which we can characterize a wave, like your frequency, time period, phase. These are some other characteristic to define a wave. Next, light propagation through an anisotropic medium. As we know that two words are there. One is the isotropic medium, isotropic property. Second one is the anisotropic property or anisotropic medium. Then what is the fundamental difference between isotropic and anisotropic medium? That means whenever you take isotropic medium, then the properties are independent of the orientation, independent of the direction. But when you take anisotropic media, then different properties depend upon the direction. The direction dependent properties are exhibited by anisotropic media. So, those properties include birefringence, which is also known as double diffraction, conic refraction, optical rotation, Faraday effect, electro-optical phenomena, etc. And these effects are employed to design and fabricate various optical devices. Remember, now or at any time, whenever you read anything, any subject, any paper, you should know that why I am reading this paper, why I am discussing or focusing on these topics, because there must be some application. Due to that application, we can go for designing or fabricating any device, any other applications in the field of science and technology. So, to understand the exact application or appropriate application of a specific system, we should have the fundamental knowledge. So, I think in your BSc, in your plus 3 classes, you might have read about some fundamentals. Then some extensions are given in this MSc courses. And, and these courses are very much required to understand the concepts behind each and every phenomena, so that it can be applicable for further device fabrication, further designing purpose, further modeling purpose. Various applications may be there. Next, what do you mean by anisotropic media? The charges in a material are the sources of polarization. There is a term polarization, new term now we are coming across. So polarization is, again, we will discuss in two ways. One is known as the electrical polarization. Second one is known as the polarization of light. Right? I repeat, please listen to me attentively. Polarization, this word is explained in electricity. Polarization, this word is also explained in optics. Optical polarization we will discuss afterwards. Now let us understand what is electric polarization. Electric polarization means whenever you take two opposite charges, one is positive charge, second one is negative charge, then when they will be separated from each other, then they will constitute a dipole, right? And in the last class, again, somewhere we have discussed about dielectrics. Dielectrics are what? Dielectrics are the insulating materials. Dielectrics are of two types. One is the polar dielectric, second one is the non-polar dielectric material. Irrespective of any type of dielectric material, we have the dipoles, the molecules. Molecules consist of the dipoles. Dipoles consist of what? Equal and opposite charges separated from each other by a small distance, so that they will have some dipole moment. Dipole moment is again what? Dipole moment is the physical quantity which is obtained by the multiplication of magnitude of each charge with the distance of separation between the two charges. So, initially, what happens whenever you take a dielectric material, then without the electric field, all the dipoles will orient randomly. But when some electric field is applied, then dipole orientation will happen along the direction of the electric field. So, the process of alignment of dipoles, the process of alignment of dipoles along the direction of applied electric field is known as the electric polarization. So here that is been explained in an anisotropic media by taking different or by assuming different charged particle which are being attached with each other with a spring, and it seems as if it is the spring mass system. It exhibits different properties in different orientation. That is known as, that is the basic property, the fundamental property of any anisotropic material. Is it clear what is electric polarization? बुझिए लगी?
Yes, ma'am.
So I repeat, please listen to me attentively. Electric polarization is the process in which the dipole alignment take place with the application of electric field in a material. The material is known as the dielectric material. Dielectric materials may be the non-polar dielectric material or polar dielectric material. Because of this polarization phenomenon, we will have different types of polar material like ferroelectric material, piezoelectric material, pyroelectric material, ferroelectric material, antiferroelectric material, which have so many applications in the for any electronic device. So these phenomena are also very important to understand. So next is wave propagation in anisotropic material. As in the last class, we have seen, discussed that there are four Maxwell's equations. Four Maxwell's equations are based on the basic principles of electricity and magnetism. Next, with the help of differential calculus, with the help of the differential operator, del operator, this one is known as the del operator. What is the value then? I dou by dou x plus j dou by dou y plus k dou by dou z. This is known as del operator. Del operator can have different operation with the field. What are the fields? It may be a scalar field or vector field. So del operation, what are different types of del operation? Like your gradient operation, then divergence, curl. These are different operations. So for different laws and using different operations, whether gradient, divergence, or curl, in addition to that, we can use the Gauss divergence theorem, then Stokes theorem. Using these theorems and these operations with vector or scalar field, we will obtain four Maxwell's equations, which are known as the Gauss law of electrostatic, del dot D is equal to rho. Next is Gauss law of magnetostatics, then Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, and fourth one is the Ampere's law, that too the modified Ampere's law is to be taken. Similarly, then we have discussed about the Poynting vector, which is represented by the cross multiplication of electric field intensity and magnetic field intensity. Why we have taken this E cross H only? Because we are finding out the Poynting vector, which is representing the direction of propagation of electromagnetic wave, and the electromagnetic wave contains the electric component and magnetic component, which are perpendicular to each other. That's why here also, to represent an electromagnetic wave, we take the help of the Poynting vector as well. As I was discussing, that dielectric materials are having electric dipole moment, permanent electric dipole moment. Dipoles are, a dipole is an entity in which equal positive and negative charges are separated from each other by a small distance. And if you take mu E as the dipole moment, that is equal to Q into X, coulomb into meter. All dielectrics are electrical insulators, and they are mainly used to store electrical energy. Some of the examples of dielectric materials are mica, glass, plastic, water, and other polar molecules. So this figure represents that how dielectric polarization take place. For example, we have kept one dielectric material in between the two parallel plates of a capacitor, in which one of the plate acquires positive polarity, another plate acquires negative polarity. When a dielectric material is kept here, you can see the dielectric material contains both positive and negative charge. So when it will be kept inside the two opposite polar plates of a capacitor, then towards the positive polarity plate, all the negative charges get shifted. Towards the negative charge, towards the negative plate, all the positive charges will be separated, means shifted, so that there is a permanent shifting take place with the application of electric field. Hence, polarization take place. And when polarization take place, then we will come across some terms like dielectric constant, permittivity, then dielectric loss, and some other relevant parameters. So, what is then dielectric constant? Dielectric constant is the ratio between the permittivity of the medium to the permittivity in free space. Without putting the dielectric, with putting the dielectric, whatever is the relation that gives us the dielectric constant. And accordingly, we can find out the dielectric constant of different materials. And as per the value of dielectric constant, we can go for the device design and fabrication. As I was discussing about the electric polarization is the process of producing electric dipole when an electric field is applied, and it is associated with a physical quantity known as polarizability. The dipole moment will be means whenever you apply electric field, then the dipole orientation take place. With the application of electric field, dipole orientation take place, and accordingly we find an induced dipole moment. That induced dipole moment is directly proportional to the applied electric field. So since mu proportional to E, so mu is equal to, as usual, a constant of proportionality alpha into E. That constant of proportionality is known as the polarizability constant. Next is polarization vector. I think you might have read one formula, D, the displacement vector is equal to P plus epsilon 0 E. Have you read before? Padiche aguru? D is equal to P plus epsilon 0 E. Have you read before? Hello?
Yes,
Can you
yes,
hear
ma'am.
me?
Yes, ma'am.
ପଢିଛ କିରେ ଆଗରୁ? D is equal to P plus epsilon 0 E.
In
Electricity, electromagnetic theory. Anyway, so in that, yes, you can write in chat also whether you have read or not. Anyways, go back to our slides. So based on the the polarization process, we'll come across a vector which is known as polarization vector, which is equal to the dipole moment per unit volume of the dielectric material, which is given by Qi xi divided by V. V represents the dipole moment and B represents the dipole moment, and Qi xi represents the multiplication of charge with the distance of separation between two charges. As a whole, it gives the polarization vector. In a dielectric material, a large number of dipoles are available. That's why a summation symbol is given. That is the intention of writing this equation. There are different types of polarization processes or polarization phenomenon. What are different polarization? One is known as electronic polarization, ionic polarization, orientation polarization, space charge polarization. Then what is the difference among them? Electronic polarization means what? Whenever in an atom, as we know, a centrally placed, central core is the nucleus. Around the nucleus, electrons are moving in different orbitals. So, during the polarization process, when the electrons get separated, get shifted from the nucleus, then that type of polarization is known as electronic polarization. The shifting of electron cloud from the nucleus during the polarization process is known as electronic polarization. Coming to the second point, ionic polarization. What is ionic polarization? Ionic polarization is the phenomenon in which when a cation gets separated from an anion through certain distance in the polarization process, then that type of polarization is known as the ionic polarization. Next is the orientation polarization. Orientation polarization is what? Orientation polarization is that polarization process in which the um, dipoles will orient along the as per the applied electric field. The example is the polar molecule, like your water molecule H2O, will show you the orientation polarization. Next is space charge polarization. This is not desired type of polarization. However, in our practical purpose, whenever we take any dielectric material, then when we coat that dielectric material with some silver paste or graphite paste, then what happens? Such type of space charge polarization will come into play during the experiment. So altogether, they will contribute to the total polarization of a material. So to summarize, let us know what are different types of polarization. One, electronic polarization. Two, ionic polarization that happens due to the separation of ions. Orientation polarization, which is known as also dipolar polarization. And next is your space charge polarization. So this is what really happens in a dielectric material. You see, this is the dielectric material. This dielectric material is kept in between the two parallel plates of a capacitor, in which one of the plates have positive polarity, another plate has negative polarity, right? So whenever you will switch on the circuit, then what happens? Polarization process started. So whenever polarization starts, then the shifting of charges takes place in this way. All negative charges shift towards the positive plate, and all positive charges shift towards the negatively charged plate. Thus, here polarization means polarization will be induced in this process. So this is what really happened in a dielectric material. So the polarization is further classified into different types. This is of course giving us the classification of polarization for light wave. So as we are going to discuss now the polarization of light, that's why this schematic diagram shows us what are different types of polarization. So light polarization means what? Light polarization means the whenever light will move in a particular or specific direction, when we take an anisotropic media or anisotropic material, then we obtain a polarized light. I repeat that what is polarized light or polarization process in optics? Polarization is the process in which a polarized light is produced. Polarized light is that light which exhibit a unidirectional nature or which will be propagated in a single direction. The asymmetric property of light is known as polarization. So, before this, these things we have read about the electrical polarization in dielectric material. But now onwards, we will be concentrating on the polarization of light. See the difference. So, polarization is further classified into linear polarization, elliptic polarization, circular polarization, and these polarized light will be obtained by reflection, refraction, scattering, double diffraction process, and there are certain instruments used to obtain the polarized light. Those instruments are known as the nickel prism. I think you can see the pointer mark here.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
pointing on some points on the screen. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you able to see here? I'm pointing somewhere on the screen.
Quarter wave plate.
Yes.
Yes,
Very
ma'am.
good. So it's visible. Good, good. My voice is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Whenever you are not getting anything, you can stop me, you can ask me, no problem. We can discuss. So, the polarization phenomenon can be observed through different instruments. Those instruments are known as the polarizing prism, nickel prism, quarter wave plate, half wave plate. Different types of polarizers are there. Those are used to observe the polarization phenomenon. And these are polaroids are also there, polaroid sunglasses are there. In addition to these phenomenon, some other phenomenon like optical activity, photoelasticity, these properties are exhibited by the polarized material. So what is then polarized light? Polarized light is that light in which the vibration will lie in a single plane. Polarized light is that light in which the vibration lie on one single plane only. Whereas what is unpolarized light? Unpolarized light is the ordinary light. Ordinary light means what? The bulb, the tube, sun ray, these are the unpolarized light. Why it is known as unpolarized light? Because here you can see, you can mark the pointer that here the vibration is in all possible direction. That's why it is known as unpolarized light. Whereas in polarized light, it will vibrate in a single direction like this, right? So how to get then polarized light? Polarized light can be obtained by using some instruments, and that instrument or that device which convert the unpolarized light as shown here into the polarized light is known as polarizer. I repeat, polarizer. Polarized light is the light. Polarizer is the instrument or device which is used to produce polarized light from an unpolarized light. What is then unpolarized light? Unpolarized light is obtained from an ordinary bulb. Unpolarized light is also known as ordinary light. When ordinary light rays will pass through a polarizer, then we obtain the output as the polarized light in which the vibration will be in a single direction only. That is the polarized light. The polarized light, plain polarized light is again have the vibration, either it will be parallel or the perpendicular vibration. So these are some points of differences between unpolarized and polarized light. Unpolarized light is that light in which the electric vector will oscillate in different plane, in more than one plane. Whereas polarized light is that light in which electric vector oscillates in a single plane. Unpolarized light is symmetrical about any direction, but polarized light is asymmetrical about the ray direction. The unpolarized light is produced by on conventional light sources like tube light, bulb, sun rays, sunlight, like that. Whereas polarized light are obtained from unpolarized light with the help of the instruments known as polarizer. So, what is polarizer means? Polarizers are the instruments which can produce polarized light from an unpolarized light. Next, this may be unpolarized light may be regarded as the resultant of two incoherent waves of equal intensity, whereas polarized light may be regarded as resultant of two mutually perpendicular coherent waves. There are different methods of obtaining polarized light. What are different methods? The methods are: the polarized light can be obtained by the phenomenon known as reflection, refraction, double refraction, transmission, selective absorption, scattering. These are some phenomena by which the polarized light can be produced. Here in the figure you can see that this one is a polarizer named as polarizer 1. This one is a polarizer named as polarizer 2. So here it is the incident beam. This is the unpolarized or ordinary beam which a vibration in different direction here. This is the input end. Next here in the polarizer 1 you can see vertical lines. That means the waves are the vertical waves. These waves are passing through it like this. But whenever the another polarizer, which is of course known as the analyzer, is kept in such a way that these lines are now horizontal, then the wave which is coming from the first polarizer cannot pass through the second polarizer, but it will be stopped over here. This explains the transverse electromagnetic nature of light. So here what happens when polarizer, this one is kept vertical. If this will be also kept vertical, then in the other side at the output end, the polarized light can be transmitted. If this one is vertical but this is horizontal, then no light is obtained. This is one of the most important phenomena in polarized light, and this proves the transverse nature of electromagnetic light wave. Next, polarization by transmission. That means if this one is, see here vertically it is arranged, this one is also vertically arranged. So when a transverse wave is moving, then nicely it can be transmitted through it. But the other one, both of them are placed in crossed position. Both of them are making a perpendicular position. That's why on the other side, no wave is getting transmitted. So polarization, 1 minute. So the polarization by reflection, you can see this ray is the incident ray, which is known as unpolarized incident light. So when it will incident on a surface, then it is getting reflected, and if the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of polarization, then a fully polarized light we will get after polarization process or after the reflection process. Next is polarization by refraction. Refraction, you can see here, this is a slab. You can take, let us consider a glass slab or a any other substance. So this is the incident ray. When it's incident on one of the surfaces, then it will be divided into two more rays. One of the rays obey the Snell's law, another ray doesn't obey the Snell's law. We will discuss it afterwards. Those are known as the doubly refracting rays. So here what happens that the vibration of the light wave in one case is parallel, another case is perpendicular, and both of them are known as the doubly refracted rays. One is known as the ordinary ray, second one is known as the extraordinary ray. So out of these two rays, any one of the rays will be transmitted as the polarized ray in various devices. Next is polarization by scattering, which is a natural phenomena we observe during the sunset. That means the scattering rate of scattering is inversely proportional to fourth power of the wavelength. That is, rate of scattering is inversely proportional to 1 by lambda 4. Since red color has maximum wavelength, so rate of scattering will be less. Since rate of scattering for red color is less, that's why you know that for signaling purpose generally red light is used, so that for a long distance that red light is visible. That is due to the scattering phenomenon. That means less will be the scattering when more is the wavelength. And this is also one of the phenomena explained or the polarization of light wave. As I said, different polarizing materials or different types of instruments are there to convert the unpolarized light into polarized light. Those, as we have seen in the previous slides here, you can see that I was explaining when both of them will be parallel, then the light ray can be transmitted to the other side. If they are perpendicular, then here there is no light, and this is also observed in this figure. And that can also be explained by this law, which is known as Malus law, MALUS, Malus law, which is given by I is equal to I0 cos square theta or cos square q. Here, theta, generally it is written as theta. Theta is the angle between the first polarizer, and second one, that is second polarizer. Generally, it is known as analyzer. Polarizer and analyzer. The first one is known as polarizer. Polarizers are the instrument which can polarize the ordinary unpolarized light. Then that will pass through this region and will reach at the other position, which is known as an analyzer. If the direction or angle rotated is theta is equal to 0, you can see I is equal to I0 cos square 0. Cos 0 is 1, so I is equal to I0. So you get a polarized light in the transmitted light. But if theta is equal to 90 degree, if this polarizer and analyzer, both the polarizers, you can say P1, P2 or polarizer, analyzer, both are correct. So if you take polarizer and analyzer in crossed position or in perpendicular position, then cos theta is equal to 90 degree. So I is equal to I0 into 0 give us 0. So there is no light. I repeat that whenever the polarizer and analyzer both are parallel to each other, you get maximum light. When polarizer and analyzer are perpendicular direction, then you get minimum light. When polarizer and analyzer will have the angular rotation in between 0 to 90 degree, then also the intensity gradually decrease. An intermediate intense beam will be obtained at the other end. Polarizer and analyzer, what we are discussing just now. Polarizer is a polarizing filter used to produce polarized light. Analyzer is a polarizing filter used to determine if light is polarized. If light is polarized and what type of polarized light, because there are different types of polarized light, like circularly polarized light, plane polarized light, elliptically polarized light. So that will be analyzed through the analyzer. And you see this one, Malus law, MALUS, Malus law. This Malus law is given by I is equal to I0 cos square theta. Another important property of the polarizing substance or polarizing material is that which is known as optical activity. Optical activity is the phenomenon in which rotation of plane of polarization is studied. There are certain materials which exhibit the optical activity phenomenon. What is that? That means whenever the polarized light will pass through the optically active substance, then the angle of the plane of polarization will be rotated through some angle. I repeat, please listen to me attentively. Optical activity is a phenomenon in which we observe the rotation of plane of polarization. There are certain optically active materials, in which when a polarized light will incident, then the optically active material will rotate the plane of polarization of the polarized light through some angle. And some of the examples of optically active materials are sugar solution, turpentine, liquid crystals, tartaric acid, quartz crystal, and many more types of materials are there. These are used in measuring solution concentration, liquid crystal displays, and we know LCDs are very much useful in various fields. Then the optical activity, this phenomena is observed by an instrument which is known as polarimeter. This one, polarimeter. So how does a polarimeter work? There will be a source of light. This is an ordinary source of light. How could you confirm? Here we see a star-like symbol. The star represents, this is the ordinary light, unpolarized ordinary light. Then that is followed by a polarizer. Polarizer is the instrument which polarizes the unpolarized light. So when the unpolarized light ray will fall through this polarizer, then we get the polarized light. You see, this is the polarized light. Then when the polarized light will pass through the optically active material, this tube is known as a polarimeter tube. Please look at the screen. This tube is known as the polarimeter tube, which contains the optically active material. Which material? Like this. Let us consider sugar solution is there inside this tube. So when the polarized light, this light is incidenting on the sugar solution, then the plane of polarization will be rotated through some angle. You see, here straight arrow is given, but here the arrows are inclining through some angle. What does it mean? It means there is a rotation occurring inside. Then the polarized light will pass through the polarimeter and come to the output end, and that will pass through the analyzer. Analyzer will analyze the type of polarized light and the related properties, means here that will be observed through the observer's eye. So there will be a light source here, then you have the polarimeter. A polarimeter contains a polarizer, then sample tube and an analyzer. And at last, the observer will observe here, looking through the analyzer. This is how a polarimeter works. So you can see this is a diagram exhibiting how polarization experiment to be done. Unpolarized light is there that will pass through a polarizer. So polarized light is obtained. Then analyzer. Based on the rotation of analyzer, either we get a maximum intense light or intermediate intense light or no intensity, total darkness. That depends upon the orientation of the analyzer. Polarizer will be towards the ordinary light, polarizer. Towards the observer's eye, analyzer. That is what everywhere you find in a polarization experiment. There are different types of polarization known as linear polarization, circular polarization, elliptical polarization. In linear polarization, electric field vector oscillate along a straight line in one plane. In circular polarization, circularly polarized light it consists of two perpendicular electromagnetic plane waves of equal amplitude. Then only it can satisfy the relation x square plus y square is equal to a square. Thus, it will give us the circularly polarized light. Elliptically polarized light have again it will also satisfy the same condition as like the circularly polarized light. Only difference is that the amplitudes of both the waves which are superimposing at an angle of 90 degree are different. That's why it will satisfy the equation x square by a square plus y square by b square is equal to 1. So, which is an equation of an ellipse. As I said, that different types of polarization are there. This is the notation for linear polarization. This is the notation for circular polarization. You can see this is one wave. This is another wave. But both the waves have same amplitude. So it is giving a circularly polarized light. In this case, that both the waves which are superimposing with each other are perpendicular to each other, but the amplitude, you see, this is the amplitude, this is the amplitude. This one is the amplitude of one wave, this one is the amplitude of another wave. The amplitudes are not same. That's why when they will combine with each other, they will give us an ellipse. So these are different notations. Circularly polarized light, elliptically polarized light, same thing. This is also the notation, this is also the notation, same. So, plane polarized light will be produced by various methods like reflection, diffraction, scattering, selective absorption, which is known as dichroism, and double diffraction. Anisotropic crystals show the polarization phenomenon. As like the anisotropic medium shows the electric polarization, exactly like so, to observe the optical polarization, we need to use anisotropic crystals only. Because of their anisotropic property, it exhibits the polarization phenomenon. Some examples of anisotropic crystals are calcite, tourmaline, quartz. These are some anisotropic material. Topaz, mica, aragonite. These are different types of anisotropic crystals exhibiting the polarization or giving us the polarized light. So the term anisotropy refers to a non-uniform spatial distribution of properties, which results in different values being obtained when specimens are probed from several directions within the same material. And the properties are dependent upon direction. That's why they are known as the anisotropic crystals. These anisotropic crystals or direction dependent crystals will exhibit the phenomenon of double diffraction. You know the condition of refraction. You have read about reflection and refraction. Do you know what is refraction? Can anybody tell me what is refraction? And why refraction happens?
Because the speed changes. Medium.
Very good. Because the speed changes due to the change in refractive Can you give me the full answer? Because of the change in
Yes,
refractive index.
Index.
You know? Very good, yes. Because of the variation in refractive index, we will come across the phenomenon of refraction. And again, can you tell me about some more properties of refraction? When a ray will be refracted from rarer medium to denser medium, then what happens? The refracted ray will move
towards the normal.
Very good. Then when the refraction is occurring from denser to rarer,
It will move away from normal.
move away from the normal. Very good. Good. So This is the fundamental of refraction. So whenever there is a refraction phenomenon occurring, then we will have the angles like angle of incidence, angle of refraction. And as you said that whenever the refraction is occurring from a rarer to denser medium, then the angle of refraction will be small because the refracted ray will move towards the normal. Whereas if the case is from denser to rarer, if the ray is passing from denser to rarer, then the refracted ray will move away from the normal. This is the fundamental of refraction. Next, what is then double refraction? Double refraction will be observed through some specific type of crystals which are known as the doubly refracting crystals. There are some special type of crystals known as doubly refracting crystal in which the incident ray will be splitted into two rays because of refraction. That's why the phenomenon is known as double refraction phenomenon. One of the doubly refracted rays is obeying the Snell's law, which is known as the ordinary ray. The other ray, which doesn't obey the Snell's law, is known as the extraordinary ray. And a double refracting crystal will have a direction which is called as optic axis, as you can see in this figure. Optic axis is the direction or the axis along which both the ordinary and extraordinary ray will have the same velocity or same refractive index. So, extraordinary is generally represented by E ray, ordinary ray is represented by O ray. This is another figure. Unpolarized light, when fall on one of the surfaces of a doubly refracting crystal, crystal is the doubly refracting crystal, then it will be splitted into two rays. One is known as the O ray, second one is known as the E ray. O ray, ordinary ray, E ray is the extraordinary ray. And here also isotropic crystals are some examples. Glass table salt. Anisotropic crystals are quartz, calcite, and tourmaline. So another figure means same phenomenon, different figures I have collected from different sources, and for your understanding I have given over here. So, how to then understand that which image is due to ordinary ray and which image is due to the extraordinary ray? What you can do? You can take a piece of paper and you put a cross mark. Then you keep a double refracting crystal. Then you just rotate the doubly refracting crystal over the cross mark which is there given on a plain paper. Then what you will observe that one of the images is moving, another image is remaining constant at the same place. Then the moving image is formed due to extraordinary ray, and the constant image which is not moving at all, even though we are rotating the crystal, that is formed due to ordinary ray. That is what how to distinguish between the images found by ordinary and extraordinary ray. The stationary image means which is not moving with respect to the movement of the crystal, is known as the ordinary image produced by the refracted rays which obeys the law of refraction. Whereas the other image produced by the extraordinary ray will be moving. Based on the double diffraction phenomenon and taking a doubly refracting crystal, we can fabricate a device which is very much useful in studying the polarization phenomenon, is known as nickel prism. Nickel prism is an optical device which is used for producing, that means used as a polarizer and analyzing the polarized light. That's why nickel prisms are used as analyzer and polarizer. So This is the input end. This end is the input end. This is the output end. So nickel prism has what two surfaces which are separated from each other by a layer, gluing layer, which is known as, or cementing layer, known as Canada balsam layer, whose refractive index is other than the refractive index of this material. So when a ray of ordinary light will incident one of the surfaces, then what happens? It will be splitted into two light rays, because this one is itself a doubly refracting crystal. So out of these two light rays, when it will pass through this layer, this green color line, diagonal line you are observing, it has the refractive index other than the refractive index of this calcite material. So whenever the refractive index is more, then the ray will pass through the calcite material and it will behave as like the polarized ray. But the other ray, it has the refractive index lesser than the Canada balsam layer. That's why it will be totally internally reflected, or it will be reflected, and here it will be absorbed by some suitable means. That's why after the experiment we will get only the vibration of light in a single plane. This is the polarized light. Hence, nickel prism is used as a polarizer as well as an analyzer. So, in many instruments of polarization, what we need to do? We have to take two nickel prisms. One is acting as like the polarizer, another one will act as like the analyzer. As we have seen in the previous experiment, the nickel prism, which is kept towards the source of light, ordinary source of light, is acting as like the polarizer. Then the nickel prism, which will be towards the observer's eye, will act as like the analyzer. Then you can do your experiment and you can get different results with the rotation of polarizer and analyzer. So, as we have been discussing about ordinary ray and extraordinary ray, the anisotropic crystals are further classified into different types. They may be the negative crystals or they may be the positive crystals. Negative crystals means here you see that this is the extraordinary ray. Generally, the ordinary ray will be represented by a sphere and the extraordinary ray will be represented by the ellipse, because the ordinary ray do not change its velocity with respect to the change in direction, but extraordinary ray will have maximum or minimum velocity with respect to the orientation. That's why this is the representation. This is the Huygens representation for O ray and E ray. So this is the notation of negative doubly refracting crystal. This is the representation for positive doubly refracting crystal. Here n represents the refractive index. Refractive index of extraordinary ray is lesser than refractive index of ordinary ray. Here positive crystal refractive index of extraordinary ray is greater than refractive index of ordinary ray. Same thing, different figure, and here also you can find the same positive crystal and negative crystal. That is explained, that can be explained through the variation in refractive index. So the positive crystal and negative crystal differences are: O ray lies, O ray is the circular one, O ray lies outside the surface of E ray, the elliptical one. Velocity of O ray is constant because it is circular. At optic axis, both the velocities, the velocity of O ray and E ray are same. Mu ordinary is less than mu extraordinary, and other properties. Some of the examples are quartz, ice are the positive crystal. For negative crystal, just opposite is the nature. That is, the ellipse is outside and circle is inside. And mu ordinary is greater than mu extraordinary. One of the examples is tourmaline crystal. And you know the nickel prism we have read here, generally we take tourmaline crystal also sometimes, tourmaline calcite crystal, the negative crystals we take for this. Next is based on the optic axis. How many optic axes are present? The doubly refracting crystals are further classified as uniaxial and biaxial crystal. I repeat, the double refracting crystals are classified based on the refractive index as negative and positive crystals. Based on the number of optic axes passing through it, they are known as uniaxial or biaxial crystals. These are some examples of the uniaxial and biaxial crystals. Then, as we know that different types of polarized light are present, like plane polarized light, circularly polarized light, elliptically polarized light. So, to obtain and to analyze the circularly polarized light, elliptically polarized light, as well as to analyze whether a light is plane polarized light, we need to take the help of some phase retardation plates. Then, what is phase retardation plate? That means whenever the two rays of a double refracting crystal will pass through the phase retardation plate and will produce a phase of either pi by 4 or pi by 2. Accordingly, we will have the mm, sorry, not pi by 4, pi by 2, lambda by 4 and lambda by 2, or pi by 2 and pi is the phase difference. Path difference is lambda by 4 and lambda by 2. Accordingly, the phase retardation plates are classified into quarter wave plate and half wave plate. I repeat, phase retardation plates are those plates which will create some phase difference or path difference between the ordinary and extraordinary ray. When the path difference is lambda by 4 and corresponding phase difference is pi by 2, then that type of phase retardation plate is known as lambda by 4 plate, quarter wave plate. Whereas when the path difference is lambda by 2, phase difference is pi, then the phase retardation plate is known as a half wave plate, which is represented by lambda by 2 plate. So this is what a quarter wave plate. See, lambda by 4, pi by 2, quarter wave plate. Quarter of lambda, that's why it is known as quarter wave plate. So this is the working of, see, non-polarized incident illumination. That means non-unpolarized ray is incidenting on it. This is a polarizer. Then polarized lights are produced here. When it passes through the quarter wave plate, then according to the orientation, that is when it is making an angle of 45 degree, then we get a circularly polarized light. So to produce circularly polarized light and elliptically polarized light, and we need to use the quarter wave plate or half wave plate. This is also like that we can explain the half wave plate. Production of polarized light, circularly polarized light is here. First nickel prism is used, then see, this is the ordinary unpolarized light. First it will pass through the nickel prism, then you get a plane polarized light, then that plane polarized light will pass through the quarter wave plate, then you will get a circularly polarized light. But the angle of rotation will be here 45 degree. But here same procedure is to be applied, but the angle of polarization should be other than 0, 45, 90 degree. Then you get an elliptically polarized light. So from this we could understand that the application of quarter wave plate is to produce elliptically polarized light and circularly polarized light. So some matrix treatment or representation of polarized light is also there. These are giving some representation of polarization. Then this is all about the polarization phenomenon. That is again followed by the theory of interference as per your syllabus. Interference, as the name itself suggests, the superposition or overlapping of two or more number of waves. Due to interference, we get the intensity pattern, which is known as the interference profile. So here the interference is of different types. I mean two types. One is known as constructive wave interference. Second one is known as destructive wave interference. Constructive wave interference is that in which you can find that both of them are in phase or a constant phase difference will be there, so that you will get an amplified resultant wave as the output. Whereas in destructive wave interference, both the waves have the phase just opposite to each other. You can see the red wave has the opposite phase as compared to the blue wave. So both of them will cancel each other. Finally, the intensity will be minimum. We get total darkness. So here, bright intense peaks are obtained in the interference profile, whereas dark fringes are obtained in the interference profile when it is satisfying the destructive wave interference condition. And other than these two conditions, we will get such behavior. Next, remember one more thing. If you have pen and paper with you, then write two important keywords to understand totally the phenomenon of interference. One is known as path difference. Path difference, PATH, path difference. Second one is known as phase difference. So, based on the conditions satisfied by the path difference or phase difference, we obtain the maximum intensity or minimum intensity condition. That is very much required to understand these two phenomena. Next, one of the important phenomenon to define interference of light is coherence. Most light will only have interference for small optical path difference because the phase is not well defined over a long distance. So coherence is again the condition. In simple way you can understand in this way. Coherence is the condition in which two or more light waves will have same wavelength, same frequency, same amplitude, and have either same phase difference or a constant phase difference between them. I repeat, please listen to me attentively. It may be useful in your future classes or future reading. What is coherence? Coherence is the phenomenon in which two or more light waves which are propagating in a single direction will have same wavelength, same amplitude, same frequency, and have a constant phase or a constant phase difference. No phase difference either. They may not have any phase difference. Both of them have same phase, or if they are having a phase difference, then that should be constant throughout the propagation of the wave. That is known as the coherence phenomenon. The waves which satisfy the coherence phenomena are known as coherent waves, and coherent waves are required to obtain a well sustainable interference pattern. That's why coherence, this property is one of the important properties in interference. Next, we learn about many things about waves, wave properties. In addition to these, there is a new term known as wavefront. What is wavefront then? Wavefront is the continuous path of all those waves which are moving in the same direction, having the same phase of vibration. That means if a number of waves are passing through certain medium, if we take the points of constant phase, and if we add the points, if we take the continuous path, then that will constitute a wavefront. So a wavefront, um, uh, again the wavefronts are of different types. What are the wavefronts? Spherical wavefront, plane wavefront, and cylindrical wavefront. And wavelets are again the secondary sources of light. Those are the points lying in a wavefront. So a wavelet is the point of disturbance due to propagation of light. A wavefront is the locus of points, wavelets having the same phase of oscillation. A line perpendicular to wavefront is called ray. Spherical wavefront, cylindrical wavefront, and plane wavefront we come across. So this is another diagram. This one is somehow based on the Young's double slit experiment. Two slits are present, slit 1 and slit 2. Then if you take the blue colors as the crest and the orange color as the trough, then we know from the standard rule, crest overlapping or trough overlapping give us the maximum intensity. Thus, bright band is obtained. Crest trough or trough crest opposite overlapping will give us the dark band. This is the reason why the crest overlapping, you see crest overlapping is occurring. Hence, enhancement of light is occurring. E is equal to E1 plus E2. Red plus blue is giving us the green one. This is the condition for the crest or trough overlapping. This is the condition for crest with trough or trough with crest. So E1 minus E2 giving us minimum intensity. Theory of interference generally taken, we can take two waves, A sin omega t, B sin omega t plus phi, to understand the resultant amplitude that is given by A is equal to A square plus B square plus 2AB cos theta. How to do? You have to take the superposition principle. Just recall, in my last class we are discussing about the wave packets, phase velocity, group velocity, and we have discussed one principle known as superposition principle, in which we could know that the resultant wave will be obtained by the simple algebraic sum of both the waves. So on taking the simple algebraic sum, you will get these equations. Then from these equations, you will get the intensity expression. Intensity is directly proportional to square of amplitude, and accordingly you will get different conditions for maximum and minimum intensity. As I said, for interference, two main parameters are very important to understand the entire theory of interference. One is known as the path difference, second one is known as the phase difference. The path difference is generally represented by a triangular sign. If it is equal to n lambda, then you get a maximum intense point, and the corresponding phase difference will be an even multiple of pi. Similarly, for destructive interference means minimum intensity, the path difference is an odd multiple of lambda by 2, and phase difference is an odd multiple of pi. This is the condition to be satisfied by the minimum, means dark fringe. So for path difference, for bright fringe, the intensity is directly proportional to A plus B square, and for dark fringe it is A minus B square. And there is a ratio between maximum intensity, minimum intensity, which is known as the fringe contrast ratio. That is the ratio between I max to I minimum. Based on the fringe contrast ratio, we can know that whether the interference pattern is a good interference pattern or not. Next, based on the fundamentals of interference theory, we will come across the thin film interference, in which we will have a thin film having two parallel surfaces, and this one is the ray of incident light. You can see the arrow mark. When a ray of light is incidenting on it, then subsequent reflection, refraction take place. You see, this is the incident light, reflection, and this is refraction occurring. This refracted ray will again see another surface. So here reflection is occurring, refraction is occurring. Then this reflected ray will again see a surface. So reflection occurring, refraction occurring. In this way, a multiple number of reflection and refraction take place. Then what happens, these reflected rays will satisfy the condition of coherence. These refracted or transmitted rays will satisfy the condition of coherence. When they will overlap with each other, then they will give us the interference pattern. The best examples are thin oil film, soap bubble. You just recall, whenever thin oil film is exposed to sunlight, then we observe different colors. Those colors are due to the thin film interference. Similarly, soap bubble also we have seen. So these are some mathematical equations associated with thin film interference theory. So if n is equal to 1 means this is the air medium, this is the medium having n greater than 1, then accordingly you can go on the detailed calculation and you will get the conditions for maximum and minimum intensity. Thus the interference phenomenon is again one of the physical phenomenon or physical properties, or you can say wave property of light. So we have completed till now the electromagnetic wave in anisotropic media in dielectrics. Then we have discussed about polarization. Then we discussed about interference. Now come to the phenomenon of diffraction. Diffraction is what? The bending nature of light. It is different than that of interference with these points. In interference, all fringes have equal width. All the bright fringes will have same intensity. And the conditions for maximum intensity is n lambda. Condition for minimum intensity is 2n plus 1 by 1 into lambda by 2. And the minimum will have totally zero intensity. Now coming to the diffraction fringes or diffraction phenomenon, interference explains the superposition phenomenon. Diffraction explains the bending nature of light. And here the width of fringes are not equal. The width gradually changes from the center on either side of the center, right? Next is the brightness or intensity also gradually decreases with respect to the increase in order. Then the minima occur at the path difference of n lambda and maxima occurs at the path difference of this one. That depends upon the instrument we are using. So these are the basic difference between interference and diffraction. In addition, there are some similarity between interference and diffraction. What are the similarity? In interference, we obtain a fringe pattern. In diffraction, also we obtain a fringe pattern. In interference, we obtain an alternate arrangement of maximum and minimum intensity point. In diffraction, we obtain an alternate arrangement of maximum and minimum intensity point. So, the as now onwards we are discussing about diffraction. Let us know the types of diffraction. There are two types of diffraction. One is known as Fresnel diffraction. Second one is known as Fraunhofer diffraction. The experiments we do in our laboratory classes based on generally the Fraunhofer diffraction, in which lenses are used to obtain the diffraction pattern. So, as already we have discussed, diffraction explains the bending of light wave around the corners of an obstacle or an aperture placed in its path. Diffraction becomes significant when the dimension of the aperture or obstacle are comparable to the wavelength of light. This is one of the most important points you need to remember always. This one, diffraction becomes significant when the dimension of the aperture or obstacle are comparable to the wavelength of light. Diffraction of light, the phenomenon of bending of light around the corners and the encroachment of light within the geometrical shadow of an opaque obstacle is called diffraction. Two figures are given. That means either a small opening or a small object whose size is comparable to the wavelength of the source of light used. So here also diffraction observed, here also diffraction can be observed. Again the same difference between interference and diffraction. Interference is due to superposition of two different wave trends. Here diffraction is the bending. After bending, the formation of fringes occurs due to the superposition of secondary wavelets. Fringes will have generally the same fringe width, but it will have varying width. Next, all the maxima have same intensity, whereas here maxima have varying intensity. That means the intensity gradually decreases. In diffraction, there are two types of diffraction. Already we have discussed Fresnel and Fraunhofer diffraction. In Fresnel diffraction, what happens? The source and screen are at a finite distance apart from each other, finite. But Fraunhofer diffraction, the source and screen are at an infinitely large distance apart. Infinitely. Remember, Fraunhofer means infinitely large distance apart. That's why we need to use the lenses for observing Fraunhofer diffraction pattern. But here no lenses are used. See the figure? This is the source. This is a diffracting object. Here an obstacle is taken. This is a single slit. Small slit is there. Then this one is a screen. So source, since this is the Fresnel type of diffraction, no lenses are used. Because source, then the slit or obstacle and the screen all are finite distance apart from each other. But here source, the diffracting object, and the screen are a very large distance apart from each other. That's why we need to use two lenses. One will be in between the source and the diffracting object. Second one will be in between diffracting object and the screen, so that we will get the diffraction pattern. In laboratories, we do prefer to use the Fraunhofer diffraction to observe the diffraction pattern. So, Fraunhofer diffraction can be observed by various instruments. One of the instruments is the single slit instrument. Single slit means here there is a single slit available. So Fraunhofer diffraction means again the same as we have seen over here. There will be a source of light, a lens, then single slit, another lens, screen. Then here you see O. O is the point which is known as the central zero order maximum. Then P is a point under observation. Point under observation, which is formed due to the diffracted rays. Here, these rays are known as the diffracted rays because these are the bending rays, where the angle of diffraction is theta, right? So, theta is. Then on further subsequent calculation, you will get the equation for resultant amplitude in single slit diffraction is this much. But just in interference chapter, just recently we have seen that the intensity is square of amplitude. So if amplitude is this much, that is further given by a sine alpha by alpha, then intensity is a square sine square alpha by alpha square. So one more thing you should remember, that if you have pen and paper also, please write. This is also one of the most important point. Interference, in interference experiment, what you get? You will get an interference pattern which consists of the bright and dark fringes. In diffraction, you get the diffraction pattern which consists of bright and dark fringes. But there is a small difference. In diffraction, for bright fringes, it is further classified into two types. One is known as the primary maximum intensity point, and second one is known as secondary maximum intensity point. So, you get what? This one. The central zero order maxima is the primary maximum point, and these small peaks are also the maximum points but these are the secondary maximum point. Then these points pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, minus pi, these are the minimum points, right? So I repeat, in diffraction, in addition to the primary maxima, you obtain the secondary maxima point. Both are the bright fringes itself, but the secondary maxima will have lesser intensity than that of the primary maxima point. Whereas in interference, there is no terms like primary or secondary. Only maximum intensity and minimum intensity points are there. Next, if you go through a double slit, in place of C, here single slit you have used, single opening, this one. Whereas if you go through a double slit, double opening, two single slits taken together, so this is known as the double slit. Again, Fraunhofer diffraction, two lenses are used. O is the central zero order maxima, P is the point under observation. Then you will get finally this intensity. And here you see the graph that a solid line is given, and in between you inside the solid line you find these fringes again. The solid line is due to diffraction envelope or due to diffraction phenomenon, and these lines, the interior peaks are due to interference. Why it happens? See, here two slits are there. So at individual slit, diffraction take place. In addition to that, because of the presence of two slits, the rays coming from S1, the rays coming from S2 will superimpose as like interference. That's why in addition to diffraction, interference also take place. Hence, we get such type of graph. Are you getting? କିଛି ବୁଝିପାରିଲ? ବୁଝିହେଲା difference?
Yes, ma'am.
Since here more number of slits are present, more than one means here in addition to diffraction, interference is also occurring. So in this way you will get the diffraction profile. If you increase the number of slit, n number of slit, in place of double slit, if you increase the number of slits like 3, 4, 10,000, 15,000, 18,000 like that, then you will have an end slit diffraction, and that diffraction instrument is known as, or that device is known as diffraction grating, in which a large number of slits are present. And the diffraction grating are of two types. One is plane transmission grating, second one is plane or concave reflection grating. Then if you go through the diffraction experiment, you will have such type of fringe pattern. This is known as the grating fringe pattern. Grating means it will have a large number of slits of the order of thousands, of the order of some 15,000, 20,000 like that. And in diffraction also one more topic is there, Fourier transform in optics. In Fourier transform, as you know that there is a transformation of domains take place, and accordingly some mathematical calculations are there and analysis is given. Next, your diffraction, next to diffraction chapter, you have the laser chapter. In the first class, I was explaining what is laser. Light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So that is the abbreviation for this, light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Why laser is very important? Because of its high degree of coherence, high intensity, highly directional, highly monochromatic in nature, highly focused, highly intense in nature. These are the main characteristics of laser. They are highly monochromatic in nature, highly directional in nature, highly coherent in nature. That's why you see the laser light, even if the pointer I am using is the laser pointer, that means pointing means we can point on a surface by using the laser light. Why? Because of their high directional and coherent in nature. This is the coherent nature, that means they will move in a single direction. The principle of laser based on the phenomenon like absorption, spontaneous emission, and stimulated emission. See, two energy levels are there. These are the atoms. This is the notation for a photon. That means some energy is given. The ground state atom will move to the higher state. So excitation takes place. This phenomenon is known as absorption. Then when the excited atom will be there in the excited state, then it will come back to the ground state by emitting the photon which was already absorbed initially. So this is known as spontaneous emission, because here spontaneously the atom excited atom is coming to the ground state, whereas in this case the atom is in the excited state but it will remain in the excited state for more time. That's why it needs the help of an external energy. Thus when it is coming back to the ground state, then it will emit two energy photons. So it is known as stimulated emission process. That means in this case, the excited atom needs some help in terms of some external energy so that it will give more energy. This is known as stimulated emission. And stimulated emission is the key factor to give us the laser light. So the same thing in a schematic way. Absorption, initially the atom was here. Due to absorption, it moved to the excited state, come back to the ground state without the help of any external energy. So it is known as spontaneous emission. Whereas in stimulated emission, it need external energy. So one already was there. Now another energy is given. So 2 is the output. This is about the stimulated emission. And atomic transition take place in the laser radiation, and that will be explained through the Einstein's AB coefficient. So this is all details of those processes what we have discussed in terms of the mathematical calculation. Spontaneous emission, then the terms A, B, here you see B is there and here A is there. These are known as the Einstein's AB coefficient. So there is a relationship between Einstein's AB coefficient, and that is the fundamental behind the laser radiation. So basic concepts, some terms are associated with laser. One is population inversion. Population inversion means when more number of atoms are present in the higher state as compared to the lower state. Lifetime is what? The time which the excited atom takes to remain in the excited state. Metastable state is that excited state where the lifetime is very large. Lasing is the process of emission of stimulated photons after achieving the population inversion condition. So this is the lasing action diagram. Ground state was there. Initially atoms will be excited and remain at the excited state. Then it will come to the metastable state. So more number of atoms will remain over here. When they will come to the ground state, then they will emit the stimulated emission. There are some components of laser device known as active medium, pumping mechanism, optical pumping, electrical pumping, direct conversion, optical resonator. These are some components of laser. Based on the arrangement and the active medium, the different types of lasers are there. Solid state laser, semiconductor laser, dye laser, gas laser, excimer laser, like that. So this is very important that for any laser device, we need to have an active medium. Based on the type of active medium, it can be classified as solid or liquid or gaseous type of laser. Then this is a mirror. This one is a mirror. This is a fully reflective mirror. This is a partially reflective mirror, so that we will get the output beam. Then the entire arrangement is known as the optical resonator, where the stimulated emission take place. So laser operates in the ultraviolet, visible and infrared electromagnetic spectrum. As per our requirement, we do use different types of laser spectrum. So this is again the same in atomic point of view. So This is the nature of ordinary light. This is the nature of the laser light. Many wavelength, multidirectional, incoherent, monochromatic, directional, and coherent. Laser output may be in terms of the in a continuous form, or it may be in the pulsed form. This is one of the figures showing the ruby laser. This is the helium neon laser. Next, the last topic is your waveguide. Waveguide means the tube which is guiding the wave for transmission purpose. It may be found in the form of a rectangular waveguide or a circular waveguide. Waveguides are further having these are some points related to waveguide, and they are having different modes. The modes are known as transverse electromagnetic mode, transverse electric wave, transverse magnetic wave, hybrid wave. Different types of modes are there. Transverse electric mode will have magnetic field in this way and electric field in the other way, whereas transverse magnetic mode is just opposite to that of the first one. Then wave guides at various frequencies will behave like this. Same thing. Then last one is waveguide. One of the materials we use for waveguide is the fiber optic material, and fiber optics cables are the channels through which we can communicate the audio visual signal through a long distance. So an optical fiber is a thin, flexible, transparent fiber that will act as like the waveguide. And in an optical fiber, these are the layers. The central one is known as core, that is surrounded by cladding, that is surrounded by the coating, which is plastic coating. And here you can find the transverse view of an optical fiber. So core is the central part that is surrounded by cladding, that is surrounded by different coating, different layers of coating. Core, cladding, coating, like that. And through the optical fiber, by using the total internal reflection phenomenon, communication of the signal can be done. So total internal reflection phenomenon means what? The ray which, this is the input end, this is the output end. The ray which are feed along the input end will be continuously reflected through the optical fiber, and we obtain the final transmitted signal without any loss. This is the representation of total internal reflection, and it happens when a ray of light will incident from an optical denser medium to a rarer medium, and we get a totally reflected ray when the angle of incidence is more than the critical angle. In addition, there is a term that is known as numerical aperture, which explains the light gathering capacity of an optical fiber, and it has the equation that is mu1 square minus mu2 square. These mu1 and mu2 or n1 n2 represents the refractive indices of core and cladding material. And as I say that whenever we discuss anything, then we should know what are the applications or advantages of fiber optics, because it can cover much higher bandwidth, it is immunity to noise, and it is very safe and high security, less loss, reliability, size is also lighter and more compact than copper wires, and flexible also. That's why we do use the optical fiber. This represents the classification of optical fiber based on the material, based on the number of modes, based on the refractive index. So accordingly, glass fiber, plastic fiber, single mode, multi-mode, step index, graded index. So these things are the same thing, means the classification of the optical fiber itself. So this completes your today's lecture, and I think you could understand something about optics, different topics of optics. Is it Bujela?
Yes, ma'am.
So let us stop the class now. बंद कर दबा।
Ma'am, you will you have talked with the coordinator to send the PPT.
Yes, I
Okay.
have talked, but he said that it can be said personally. So you do one thing, you write your email ID in the chat box, or I will write my email ID in the chat box. You can send me an email, and I will send you the PPTs.
Okay.
ମୁଁ ମୋର ଇମେଲ୍ ଆଇଡି ଲେଖୁଛି, ତମେ ତମର ସେଥିରେ ସେଇ ଇମେଲ୍ ଆଇଡିରେ ତମର ଯାହା କ୍ୱେରି ଅଛି ସେଣ୍ଡ କର, ମୁଁ ତମକୁ ଯାହା ନୋଟ୍ ଅଛି ଯାହା ଅଛି ମୁଁ ପଠେଇଦେବି। ଓକେ?
Yes, ma'am. You can give your email ID.
ମୁଁ ଚାଟ୍ ବକ୍ସରେ ଲେଖୁଛି, ତମମାନେ ଦେଖ। ରୁହ। So you can send me your queries in this mail, skp.iitphy@gmail.com. I will send you the note. Okay? You note down this email and send me your query or anything, any personal suggestion or counseling is required. I will help you. ଲେଖିଲ, ମୋର ଏଇ ମେଲ୍ ଆଇଡିରେ ଦେବ।
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then let us leave. Let us close the class. Thank you to all. Let us close.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night, ma'am.
Thank you to all.